My brothers and sisters, when silence feels heavier than gunfire, when the eyes of men shift nervously even in daylight, you must understand something brews beneath the calm. In our time, coups no longer announce themselves with tanks and parades. They arrive quietly, wrapped in diplomacy, disguised as partnership, planned over coffee in foreign embassies. They do not strike from the skies, they strike from within our ministries. They do not come wearing uniforms, they come wearing suits. And when they smile, it is not friendship, it is calculation. I have lived long enough to see how power is stolen without a single bullet fired. It begins with whispers, polite at first. He is too young, they say. He speaks too boldly. Then the tone hardens. He is unpredictable, dangerous, out of alignment with our shared interests. But whose interests do they mean? Not the farmers of Burkina Faso, not the miners who sweat beneath the Sahel sun. No, they mean theirs. The same powers that carved our borders and still draw our budgets. When I took the oath to serve this nation, I knew my words would not echo well in the halls of Paris or Washington, because I spoke of things they call threats: unity, independence, dignity. Those are dangerous ideas in a world where Africa is supposed to remain obedient. They told me politely, work with us, but work with us means work for us. They said, we want stability, but their definition of stability is silence. Silence of the people, silence of the press, silence of any leader who refuses to kneel. And when I refused, the storm began to gather. Ambassadors became critics, advisors became spies, old allies grew distant, foreign media printed the same headline over and over again. Burkina Faso drifts toward isolation. Isolation, they call it, because we dared to stand alone. Do they not see that this soil was never meant to be owned? That the red dust of Burkina Faso belongs to no empire? I have seen this pattern before. They build the same trap for every African leader who dares to think differently. They flatter you, fund you, photograph you, and the day you stop obeying, they turn the lights off. They weaponize your own people's hunger against you. That is the storm we face, not of nature, but of politics, not of thunder, but of deceit. They think they can unseat a revolution the way one replaces a puppet, but they do not understand. This revolution was not born from a man. It was born from centuries of struggle, from the blood of those who refused to die slaves. I do not fear their whispers. I do not fear their plots, because the people now see through the fog, and once the people awaken, no coup can succeed, not even one disguised as charity. So let them gather in their polished rooms and plan my removal. Let them write their reports and tighten their sanctions. I am not afraid of storms. I was born in one. My brothers and sisters, the world has changed, but its deceit has not. Coups today are crafted not in the chaos of gunfire, but in the comfort of conference rooms. They no longer roll in with tanks. They arrive wrapped in white papers, press releases, and well-tailored lies. When they realized they could not defeat Africa with armies, they built institutions. When they could no longer enslave us by chains, they enslaved us by debt. And now, when they cannot colonize our land, they colonize our leaders. A coup today begins quietly, with conversations disguised as development meetings. They summon our ministers to their embassies. They speak gently, but every word carries a threat. General, we are concerned about the direction of your government. That is the language of modern warfare. Concern is their camouflage. Behind that concern are budgets waiting to be frozen, shipments waiting to be blocked, and headlines waiting to be written. Then they begin their choreography, the slow, systematic weakening of trust. They start with the military. They offer training programs for our young officers. But those programs are not just about tactics. They are about ideology. They teach obedience to Western interests before loyalty to African soil. They plant doubts. Is your leader truly capable? They whisper promises. You could do better. Soon after, they move to the press. Anonymous reports begin to circulate. Journalists, some paid, some manipulated, repeat the same message in a dozen different ways. The government is losing control. Foreign-funded NGOs release statements filled with carefully chosen words, authoritarian tendencies, lack of transparency, democratic backsliding. By the time the rumor becomes common talk in the marketplace, the narrative is complete. The coup has not yet happened, but it already feels justified. Next, they target the economy. Loans that were once guaranteed are suddenly delayed. Aid shipments are under review. Donors withdraw, claiming instability, prices rise, food grows scarce. The people suffer, and who do they blame? Their own government. That is how they build the case for removal, brick by brick, lie by lie. And when the nation grows desperate, they send envoys to propose transition. Transition, they say, will bring calm. Transition, they say, will bring peace. But peace bought from puppets is not peace. It is paralysis. My brothers and sisters, understand this. Coups today are not against soldiers. They are against sovereignty. They do not overthrow men, they overthrow movements. When they could not assassinate Thomas Sankara's dream, they assassinated the man. When they could not silence Lumumba's truth, they silenced his voice. And now they try again, through corruption, through manipulation, through deceit hidden under diplomacy. They will smile at you while signing the orders that starve your children. They will call it reform, but it is theft. They will call it aid, but it is chains. They will call it partnership, but it is domination. And when all else fails, they will call it a coup and pretend they had nothing to do with it. Ask yourself this: why does the world tremble when an African nation begins to think freely? Why does the media suddenly flood with fear when we speak the language of sovereignty? They say they fear instability, but what they truly fear is independence. They fear a nation that refuses to kneel. They fear a soldier who serves no master. They fear a people who understand that poverty is not destiny but design. When I took power, I was not their choice. I was their warning because I represented something they could not control. A new generation of Africans who no longer ask permission to be free. And make no mistake, freedom is what they fear most, not because it threatens their security, but because it exposes their hypocrisy. The fear of a new example. You see, brothers and sisters, the West does not fear Burkina Faso because of its weapons. It fears us because of our example. If one small nation can reject the IMF, reclaim its gold, and still stand firm, what stops others from doing the same? If one young African leader can stand before the world and speak truth without trembling, what prevents another from rising tomorrow? That is their nightmare, the chain reaction of courage, because courage is contagious. When one country stands tall, others remember how to walk. So, they cannot allow Burkina Faso to succeed. They cannot allow Africa to see that resistance works. They cannot allow our people to believe that prosperity does not require permission. This is why they isolate us. This is why they fabricate lies. This is why they fund our division. They do not need to invade. They only need to make the world doubt us. The propaganda machine, watch their media. Notice how quickly they change tone when Africa acts independently. When a Western power overthrows a government, they call it defending democracy. When an African leader does the same to protect his people, they call it authoritarianism. When they send weapons to control our lands, it is security assistance. But when we buy our own weapons, it becomes militarization. They applaud obedience, but condemn pride. That is why every headline about me begins with controversial, because to them, an African leader who thinks for himself is a threat, not a partner. The fear of unity. But their deepest fear, my brothers and sisters, is not me, it is us. They fear an Africa that speaks with one voice. They fear a Sahel that stands shoulder to shoulder. They fear a continent that trades in its own currency, defends its own land, educates its own youth, and refuses to sell its soul for loans. Because the day that happens, their empires will crumble, not through war, but through irrelevance. This revolution is not against the West, it is for ourselves. We are not anti-European, anti-American, or anti-anyone. We are simply pro-African, and that is enough to make them tremble. The unwritten truth. I have read their reports, their diplomatic cables, their think tank papers. I have seen the words written in secret. Traore represents a dangerous new model, young, nationalist, uncontrollable. To them, a leader who listens to his people instead of their ambassadors is dangerous. But let me tell you something they will never understand. A man who fears nothing cannot be manipulated. And a people who have awakened cannot be enslaved. That is why they want to remove me. Not because I threaten peace, but because I threaten permission. They have built a world where Africa must ask before it acts. I was the first to say no, and that single word, no, shook their foundations. No revolution falls easily to outside enemies. No, it falls from within. It is not the foreign general who brings a movement to its knees, but the familiar face who betrays it for comfort. You see, the greatest battle I fight is not against the West. It is against the weakness within our own walls, the fear, the greed, and the hunger for validation that live among us. The West may plan, but it cannot act without African hands opening the door. It cannot destabilize without African voices repeating its words. It cannot divide without African hearts willing to be bought. And that is the tragedy of our continent. Betrayal wears our skin. The shadows inside the system, inside every ministry, every army barrack, every state office, there are those who whisper not to the people but to embassies. They speak in the language of loyalty, but their loyalty is bought by grants and visas. They say, I am only being strategic. They say, we must maintain relations. But what they mean is, I am afraid to live without approval. It is this fear, not the IMF, not NATO, not France, that cripples nations. I have seen it firsthand. An officer proud by day, secretive by night, a minister who praises sovereignty in speeches, yet signs foreign contracts in silence. A journalist who claims neutrality, but receives payment in envelopes marked training support. These are not accidents. They are symptoms of colonization that never ended. Colonization of the mind still in chains. My brothers and sisters, the white flag still waves inside too many African souls. The colonizer taught us that approval is survival, that foreign praise means progress, that partnership means peace, and because we craved peace, we traded it for obedience. But now I see a different generation rising, a generation that refuses to be polite in the face of oppression. They are not anti-Western, they are anti-hypocrisy. They do not hate Europe, they hate the arrogance that tells them they are not enough. Still, for every young patriot who stands up, there is an elder who warns, be careful, they will kill you. Yes, they might. But if fear keeps us quiet, then death will not come once. It will come every day in silence. I would rather die free than live on my knees. The soldier's solitude. There are nights when even I question who stands beside me. Power is a lonely mountain. Around you are smiles, but how many are sincere? In the barracks, I see eyes that avoid mine, soldiers uncertain whether their future lies with the revolution or with the next bribe. In the capital, I hear businessmen speak of foreign investment when they mean foreign control. Even among leaders across Africa, there are those who send messages of support by day and sign deals with our adversaries by night. But I do not judge them. I know what fear does to a man. Fear makes him surrender before the first shot is fired. And that is why I fight this war differently, not only with guns, but with truth, because the truth is the only weapon that cannot be bought. My oath against betrayal to those who plot in the shadows, know this. I will never surrender this land to puppets. I will never trade our people's hope for your funding. You may infiltrate my ranks, you may threaten my life, but you will never corrupt my purpose. I was not sent here to be liked, I was sent here to serve, and even if the enemy wears my uniform, I will face him as I face all invaders, without fear and without apology, because betrayal may wound the body of the revolution, but it can never kill its soul. My brothers and sisters, they no longer use the weapons of old. The world has changed, and so have the tools of conquest. The new empires do not send armies, they send invoices. They do not invade with tanks, they invade with terms and conditions. They do not shoot bullets, they shoot policies that pierce deeper than lead. I call them the 5 silent weapons. Instruments so quiet, so polished, that you hardly realize you are under attack until the flag above your own palace no longer belongs to you. First, debt is the most dangerous bomb ever built. It explodes slowly, generation by generation. They offer loans wrapped in friendship, but every signature is a shackle. You think you are buying hope, but you are mortgaging your children's freedom. They tell us, borrow now to develop. But when repayment comes, they tighten the chain, cut spending, privatize your schools, sell your mines, reduce subsidies. And when you ask, why must my people starve for your profit? They reply, because it is fiscal discipline. They call it economics. I call it modern slavery. Second, the media. Their cameras are sharper than their swords. They create your image before you can speak for yourself. If you refuse their command, you become anti-democratic. If you expose their exploitation, you become anti-Western. They do not show your farmers growing grain. They show your hungry children. They do not show your resistance. They show your riots. They do not show your progress. They show your pain. The same hands that spread famine also control the photographs of it. So I learned to stop chasing their approval, because the day Africa begins to define its own story, the day we control our own media, their weapon will lose its edge. Third, aid, my brothers and sisters, is not always kindness, it is currency. They send it when they need obedience. They withhold it when they need pressure. Aid that feeds the poor is mercy. Aid that silences the proud is manipulation. They give you sacks of rice, but take your right to trade. They build schools, but choose what your children learn. They give vaccines, but patent the profits. Real aid is partnership, not permission. And the only sustainable aid is the one that teaches a man to rise, not bow. Fourth, diplomacy. They wear the mask of diplomacy, but their hand always reaches for your resources. They come with smiles and contracts, summits, and memoranda of understanding. They call you Your Excellency, but when you sign, they own your economy. They speak of peace, but their peace is one where they hold the pen and we hold the debt. A handshake that hides a dagger is not diplomacy, it is deception. Fifth, fear, and the last weapon, the quietest yet the deadliest, is fear. They do not need to kill a leader to silence him, they only need him to believe he will be killed. They do not need to invade a country, they only need to make its leaders believe resistance is impossible. Fear makes nations surrender before the first shot is fired. Fear convinces the brave to stay silent and the gifted to flee abroad. But I have learned one truth in all my years as a soldier. Courage is not the absence of fear. It is the decision that something is more important than fear. So yes, they will use their silent weapons, but we have our own: truth, unity, and conviction. And when these weapons meet, I promise you, it is not their silence that will prevail, but the roar of an awakened continent. This message is not for governments, nor for generals. It is for you, the people, the real heart of this nation and of this continent. Because no revolution can survive if its people remain silent spectators. Freedom cannot be outsourced to leaders. It must be carried by everyone who dares to believe that tomorrow can be better than today. If one day they say, Traore has been removed, do not believe that it ends there. Ask who benefits. Ask who returns to our gold mines. Ask whose flags rise again over our bases. If they announce that I am gone, do not mourn for me. Mourn for the truth they will try to bury with me. Mourn for the dream they will try to erase. And then, when your mourning is done, stand up and continue, because a true revolution does not die with a man, it multiplies through his people. The people are the power. Many still believe that power lies in offices or armies. But I have walked among you, through the markets, through the fields, through the villages forgotten by the world, and I know where power truly lies. It lies in the hands that sow grain without fertilizer, yet feed their children. It lies in the women who wake before dawn to trade so their sons can go to school. It lies in the youth who fix generators when electricity fails, who code software from cafes with no Wi-Fi, who build dreams from dust. You are not powerless. You are simply unrealized, and the system depends on keeping you that way. They do not fear my army. They fear your awakening, because once the people understand that they are the state, no force on earth can dominate them again. The future belongs to those who build it. Do not wait for permission to act. Do not wait for foreign aid or new promises. Start where you stand. If you are a farmer, plant food that sustains our land, not their export profits. If you are a teacher, teach truth, not colonial lies. If you are a soldier, protect your people, not foreign pipelines. If you are a youth, create, even if they mock your ambition. You may think your work is small, but remember, empires crumble not by armies, but by small acts of defiance multiplied 1,000 times. Every child who learns their true history is an act of revolution. Every woman who refuses exploitation is an act of resistance. Every man who says, enough, joins an unbroken chain that stretches back to Sankara, to Lumumba, to Nkrumah, and now to you. The sacred duty of unity. Let no border, language, or religion divide us. Our enemies are united in greed. We must be united in purpose. Burkina Faso, Mali, Niger. We are not three nations. We are one struggle. The chains that bind us have the same origin, and the key that frees us will be forged together. So my message to you is simple. Do not let fear divide you. Do not let comfort corrupt you. Do not let propaganda confuse you. Because the day Africa stands together, the world will no longer pity us. It will respect us. If they remove me, let them find 1,000,000 Traorés waiting in the crowd, because a people who have found their voice can never again be silenced.